Hey everybody, welcome to Aimee Nolte Music. I know it's been a really long time, but today I'm revisiting the Oscar Peterson Boogie Blues Etude series that I made a really long time ago, and I'm excited about it. I'm also rocking my new Earthworks sweatshirt from my sponsor, my wonderful sponsor, Earthworks, who provided me with this SV33 and that PM40 recording the piano. Anyway, super excited to hop in to Oscar Peterson's stuff again. I was listening to the Boogie Blues Etudes on YouTube, as I often do. And I was reminded of a lick that Oscar Peterson plays that I also often play, and I'm sure that I learned it from him. It's the lick that he plays right around 2:05, something like... Sounds like that. Maybe it's slightly different. But anyway, I thought I could probably learn more from this lick than I already know. And the first thing that I thought of was, well, why couldn't I take it? Why couldn't I take it in that position? I'll show you my hands in a second. And apply it in another position, in another inversion. And so I messed with it for a second and figured it out. And I thought that sounded even cooler than the first one. It's just harder to play. So I thought maybe if I do it in the key of F, I should also do it in the key of B flat, and can I do it in both positions? And I wrote this little etude and actually wrote it down so you can get a PDF from this lesson if you prefer to see it written. I prefer to figure it out and watch my hands and understand what they're doing, and I hope that you prefer it that way too at some point. But if you don't prefer it that way right now, and it's much easier for you to actually see it, and if I'm being honest, it's a lot easier for me to read it. In fact, when I played it for you just a second ago, I was largely reading it. You can see my eyes were up here, because just seeing the left hand laid out like it is, and how every triplet locks in with every eighth note, it takes one step away. It takes the figuring out away. And if you're a good reader, you can be kind of on autopilot a little bit, just reading and playing. So I understand if it's easier for you to read, and you can get the PDF if you click the card above my head, $5 on my website. Let's take a look at exactly what this etude consists of. If you watched the other videos in my series about little parts of these Boogie Blues Etudes from the video of Oscar Peterson, you know that in the very first couple of videos, I just have your left hand doing this. Just going back and forth and then switching. Like this. If you can do it, you can play the 1 and the 5 and then switch to the 6 and go back and forth, and that is enough. Like, you can have a really nice pattern for the blues like that. But here I decided to go one more, just to make it a little more interesting and advanced. It takes a tiny bit more brain power to do, but that's the kind of pattern that we'll have going through on this blues. The right hand. And I've written out all of the fingerings for you too. So this is the lick that I talked about, that Oscar Peterson plays. And then I put it up in a higher inversion, and I'll show you that in a second. But this comes in at the end of the first bar of the blues. So I needed a little something to start it off, so I just wrote this. Right, and that's not too tough. And I like to put the pressure on the first note there, on the first beat, and then take a little bit off for that second beat if you want to get really into how to make this feel good. Like that. Instead of, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go soft, loud. I want to go loud, soft. So try that. It's nice to start slow too. Nice and slow. Here comes the lick. That's a little tricky to get all of these to line up. And for a second, it doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good, but it happens so fast that it's okay. And what is it? I mean, what's this? This is like, if you can imagine a G in there, this is like a G7 chord. And then we've got this one. So what Oscar Peterson does in this kind of case is that he uses what's called a secondary dominant chord, or the 5 of 5. That's what G7 is in the key of F. The 5 is C, right? Like C7. And if you wanted to find the 5 of C, you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and play a dominant chord. So that's what we've got. We've got this G7 dominant chord. And that, it just sounds good. It sounds kind of churchy to go from this secondary dominant chord. That's another name for the 5 of 5. Right? But it doesn't quite do that. It does use that secondary dominant chord, but then it approaches home by half step. You could think of that as like a minor 4 chord, like a plagal cadence. You could also think of it as being almost a tritone substitution for the C7 chord that inevitably will follow the G7 chord, right? Like you could have a C7 chord, but with this D flat note, you know, you could think of it like instead of playing a C for the bass, that you're playing an F sharp or a G flat for the bass. We're not going to play that, but you can think of it either way. So, and then we do it again. And then here is the inversion. So we take the exact same notes that we had before that were here, but now we just invert them. We put them one, the other one goes on top, the other one goes on the bottom. And we've got it up here. And I drop all the way down to the octave right here to give you a little bit of time to rearrange your hand to land on this one. Yeah, so it's a good way to practice it in chunks. I'd do that, you know, just get your hand set up and have in your mind we're going to that secondary dominant chord. And there it is. I let you do a little bit of sliding here. Sometimes I would have maybe you play the 4, but I think in this case, this is a tricky little sequence, and just having 1 and 5 in your head with this anchor in the middle is a nice way. As long as you can keep from rushing it. All right, and moving on, then we're going to do the same exact thing in B flat. And then we take the same thing and we move it. We've got a 4 and a 1, and then a 5 and a 1, and a 5 and a 1, and a 5 and a 1. It's a little bit of slipping around. I think that might be the best way to do it. If you've got another way, go ahead and take it. But that's how I decided to play it. And that's your anchor this time. And then it's just a nice little move. I decided to keep it really close this time. And so you can mix up these sixths and then come back to thirds if you want to. So the first time we did it, I went. Remember here, we kept it in sixths. And you can do that. And I could have kept it in sixth in the key of B flat, but I decided to just go back to thirds for the heck of it. Right? It's kind of fun. And I think it sounds nice. Now let's talk about these notes. What do we think this is? Now, in this position, in the bar above, like directly above it, we said it was a secondary dominant, right? Like, so in the key of F, that was a G7. So if we apply the same concept here, we could think of this as a C7, which is the secondary dominant in the key of B flat, because you know the blues moves from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, from the F chord to the B flat chord, and when we're in B flat, we're in B flat. I don't think anymore at this point that my brain doesn't think, oh, I'm in the key of F. For a little bit, my brain is in the key of B flat. That can be difficult for people sometimes to kind of grasp that. But as soon as we modulate to the 4 chord, I'm thinking about things in the key of B flat now. So when we do land on this chord, I think it's safe to say that we can totally think of it as a C7 chord, like with a flat 9, right? And then we can think of this one as the 5 chord, like it was an F chord going to B flat. All right, so it's kind of the same as above, except for now since I decided to do it in thirds, this is a really nice stepwise motion, or half stepwise motion, and it changes the notes just a little bit, and that's okay. And then back in the key of F. And here, I just decided to switch it, because sometimes instead of just doing this kind of thing, if you add this 3rd note under here and make it a triad, so that's actually the 9 in an F9 chord, and then this is a normal B flat chord, and then you've got this F7 chord with all 3 notes of the chord. It sounds really good, and this is good stepwise motion too. And you can slide that one if you want to, although I didn't write it in. Then I took straight from Oscar Peterson. This is how he ends the chorus. And to me, this is very churchy sounding too. It's kind of regal in a way, or trumpet-like. And it also makes you pause. You've got a whole quarter note rest and then a half note rest. So after doing all of this stuff, this is kind of a nice break for your brain. And then we do it again. And then I end it. Like that. That's all it is. So you've got these kind of stepwise or slidey little half-step motions that you can do whether or not you do them in thirds or you do them in sixths. And I've tried to create this etude giving you both ways, like some sixths and some thirds. And that's really, really good for me, because most of the time I do what my hand is comfortable with this stuff. Like, but why not, Aimee? Just try, you know, instead of, why not just reverse it and go, because you get a whole different sound. Or, it's totally different. Sounds just a little more open, maybe a little more beautiful. So hopefully this exercise gives you the chance to take those kind of things that you're really comfortable with and to just try something new with them, right? Thanks for hanging out with me today, everybody. I hope that in thinking about flipping thirds into sixth, that maybe you've taken something that you've already been comfortable with and been inspired to just flip it around and have a new sound. Please tag me in your videos when you're playing this etude, because I think it's a fun one and I'd like to share your videos with everybody else. Thanks for being here, everybody. I'll see you next time on Aimee Nolte Music.